Very bad things are happening in Kenya right now. 16 people have been shot dead by the police. Yes, their own police. 16 people, nobody's talking about it. It's like 16 cows or 16 sheep. Like, they have no value at all. And we cannot just watch and stay quiet. And I think this is one of the purpose we are Africans. I don't believe in countries. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't believe in countries. I believe we are brothers. We know we are one continent. They came from Europe and they divided us into small countries. Countries never existed between us before 1884. There was no such thing as country. Yes, there were tribes, there were clans, the Zulus, the Xhosas, there was the Yanzis, the Pangas, the Yungis. They all existed. The Akans, they existed. The Malians, they existed, but not the countries. No, not the country. Today they lie to you. They say your brother is only the person from which tribe that belongs to your country. It's a lie. Your brothers are people from the soul you belong. We're going to talk about it, whether it's in Togo, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Burundi, Mozambique. We are going to talk about it because we are one Africa. Whatever happening to my brother over there happens to me too. Yes, bad things are happening in Kenya right now. The police are shooting people. 16 people have been unalive, shot. And you ask yourself why? Because they are claiming something is legitimate for them. They want to be respected. They want the government to work for their benefit. You know, my mom used to say to me that the way you treat your mother in public in front of your friends is the way the public will start treating your mother. And the way you treat your partner, whether it's your husband or your wife, the way you speak to him in public is the way the public is going to speak to him. So don't be shocked when the neighbor screams at your mom after you screamed at your mom in front of the neighbor. Don't be surprised when they talk to her with less decency if all you do in front of them is talk to her with less decency. Africans are always here screaming and shouting, especially black people in general, talking about the injustice in America, talking about racism, how Donald Trump is sending people back, how the police in America is mishandling people, shooting people just because of driver's license and registration. You were speeding up and pop.
Can I see your license, please? Get a car!
We always complain about that and we talk about how bad this is. This is unacceptable in 2025. And you got to ask yourself a question. How do we treat each other in our own continent? People talk about how France is racist, Germany and all that stuff. Talk about how mistreatment we get in airport, the way they put us to the side, we be marginalized. How are we treated within our own continent and our own people? That's a good question to ask. Sometimes people talk about xenophobia. You go to the next country and nobody likes you. You go to the next country and you're being pulled away by the police. The question is, how does your government treat you? How do you expect white people to respect black people if this is how you treat black people? You shoot them, your own people. Why? Because they're claiming something that's illegitimate. They're claiming something is legitimate and you shoot them. And they're never going to come back anymore. They're gone. And you're doing politics. Now, what's happening in Kenya, fellas? Well, in Kenya, it's mayhem, havoc. Look at this. Yes, it's happening in Kenya. Now, the Kenyan people, props to them, they are not afraid. They always voice themselves. They're going to go down the street to ask for answers from governments. They are not afraid. I know many nations are very much afraid. Not many, but some of them, very afraid. They will never speak out. They'll rather be slaves than dead. You can treat them whichever way you like, provided you leave them alive, it's fine. Kenyans are not those type of people. Now, the Kenyans came to the street. Why? Because a year ago, many Kenyans came down the street. Now, you're asking yourself, in 2024, why did Kenyans come to the street? They came into the street because there was a bill that was going to be promoted as a law in Kenya. What is this bill? It's called the Finance Bill 2024. The Finance Bill 2024, basically, I'm not going to get into details, was basically a bill voted by government officials with the goal of generating more money for government. Why do they need that? They need money because the government had been spending money in a way sometimes that was not necessarily the way they planned to spend. Therefore, they needed money coming from somewhere. But this time around, they couldn't get money from usual people like World Bank and IMF and China as a debt because they are already indebted very heavily to these institutions. So the alternative was what? The alternative was to get money from the people. How do you get money from the people? You raise tax in many things, usually the basic necessities like tax on bread, tax on period pad, tax on cancer treatment, tax on most legitimate and most simplest things. So for the very normal person who has not a lot of money, needs to buy bread, he has to pay an extra amount of money as a tax. For the very sick person in the hospital looking to be cured, looking to be fine, has to pay not only the medication, but also a tax on top of a medication. We're not even counting the disease that is going through. Now, for the lady every month that need to buy a piece of pads to protect yourself for whatever that thing is, has to pay an extra amount of money for that period pad. Now, the Kenyan people say, no, we cannot accept this. We are not the reason why you misspent the money. You wasted it into things that were not necessarily the things for which you had asked the money for. You know how it happens in Africa. Usually they go ask money from World Bank or IMF. These are institutions that will borrow money to an African country with the goal of constructing something legitimate. Simple example. An African country want to build road. They can go to World Bank or IMF and say, please, we need money to build road from this town to that town. It will help us economically. This World Bank or IMF will give them the money and say, okay, we're going to give you the money, but you have to reimburse with interest. In the same token, an African country may want to build an hospital, schools, malls, or anything of that sort. They can go to World Bank or maybe China to ask for a loan. But once they get the money, in most cases, they don't spend the money the way they had planned to spend it. Because most people in politics will use some of the money for their personal purposes, like buying big houses or building big houses for their personal purpose. At the end of the day, they don't achieve the initial goal for which they had asked the money for. They end up in debt and with nothing to show off. As an alternative, they wanted to take money from the people. So let's get the people to contribute for their little earned money. And the people of Kenya said, no, we are not accepting this. They went down the street. They marched peacefully. Then it became violent. And many people were unalived. Now, later on, President William Ruto came on TV saying, I have heard the people. The people have said they do not want this bill because there was a lot of pressure against the government. Therefore, me as the president, I have decided not to accept or sign this bill. This bill will not be signed. We will take measures and we will make a change into the government. President Ruto proceeded into removing many people from office in a way to change an image of that government that looked like it had unalived people.
Consequently, having reflected on the continuing conversation around the content of the Finance Bill 2024 and listening keenly to the people of Kenya who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill.
In that moment, many people were arrested and many people were unalived. And the calm came back into Kenya. Okay, when the calm came back into Kenya, people thought that they had moved forward, moved past this situation. Fast forward, fellas, 2025. President Ruto goes into signing the bill that he refused to sign last year. After doing small changes here and there, changing some phrases, he since signed the bills. Now, the people of Kenya are not happy at all. They went down the street 1 year after many people were unalive in the street to remember, to celebrate what had occurred a year ago. Obviously, you went to the street 1 year ago in 2024, and some of you fell after they were shot by the police. Next year, you say in commemoration for that 1 year, we are going to the street and celebrate again. They were met with very strong resistance. This is the reality of what's happening in Kenya right now. And many people have been shot, 16 people unalive. They're talking about 400 people wounded and hurt badly. Now, among the small changes that have been done from the previous version of the bill, the parliament removed the clause that would have allowed the KRA, that's Kenya Revenue Authorities, unrestricted data access. Now, KRA requires court warrants to access bank account or M-Pesa records. For those of you who don't understand, this is basically a way to say that the previous bill said that Kenyan Revenue Authority could access all your financial data to the T and go and tax you. And we're not talking about business and enterprises here. We're talking about normal citizen with very little salary or no salary at all. You still need to pay the tax. So the previous bill said they could automatically, they had no needs for warranty, no need for permission to access your data. Now, this change they've made, a very small change, saying from now on, you're going to need a warrant to access your bank account or M-Pesa. What is M-Pesa? You know, in Africa, not everybody has a bank account, okay? Because not everybody has a bank account. It's very difficult to deal financially. So what they've done is they've created a way, because you have a cell phone, because most people have cell phones in the world, we can use your cell phone like a bank account. You can basically put money into a cell phone and send it to somebody else's cell phone, and they can withdraw the money from an ATM or whatever board. You get what I'm saying? So instead of using a bank account, they can use your cell phone number as a banking system. Now, the Kenyan Revenue Authority wants to access people's cell phone to check what's in there so they can tax people. And the people of Kenya say no. Well, the reason why you don't have money right now is because of the decision you're making. It's because of the spending you're doing. Civil societies in Kenya say that telecom group violates constitutional protection. You cannot allow somebody to get into somebody's cell phone without their permission. It's unacceptable. Number 2, the Kenyans are very angry because of Mr. Ojwang, who was unalived a couple of days ago. I don't know if you remember, we spoke about this. This is a man who is a teacher and also an activist. So he made a social media post talking about some policeman who's doing things that are not necessarily good. Okay, he mentioned about this policeman saying he's not happy with how he's proceeding. Guess what happened to this person? They took him away from his home. They took him 350 kilometers away from his home. You know, normally when you get arrested, they will take you to the police station, the nearest, right? That is when things are legitimate. The guy was not taken to the next police station. He was taken 350 kilometers away. That's about 220 miles away from home to another city. That's where he was put. And the next day, they found him unalive. When they found him unalive, the police report said that he was unalive because he was banging his head against the wall. Now, how do you bang your head against the wall? Then, after forensic was done, they realized that the man had been choked. He had trauma on the head, which does not corroborate with the theory that he was banging his head against the wall. So basically, the guy was unalive because he made a post about a police chief. Now, my question is very simple. If you're going to be a police chief or a public servant, you must be open to criticism, because that is not your father's job. You decide to become a chief in a public service, you are working for the people. So you must be ready to be insulted, ready to be criticized. Same as a president. You cannot decide you want to be a president and not to be criticized. Then go to your village and be a king, because kings are not criticized. If you're going to work for the people, people are going to criticize you. People criticize even Jesus. Not everybody likes Jesus. Even his own people unalived him. You know, even God doesn't have it's the support of everybody. There are many people that don't believe in God at all. So you must be ready to be criticized. Now, this person, whether he said negative or wrong things about the police officer or the police chief, did he deserve to be unalived? I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, this is somebody's son, somebody's child, somebody's husband, perhaps somebody's father, you know, a breadwinner. He brought the food in his house. Now, these people are going to cry for him forever just because of a personal ego. People of Kenya were very angry about that. And we saw again in Kenya, vendors being shot. This is a guy standing in the street who's clearly, as per the video, not making any problems. He's followed by the police and shot to the head. And later on, we heard that it was a rubber bullet. But if you shoot somebody with a rubber bullet at close range, what do you expect? This is what the Kenyans are fighting.
To every police officer, I give you my assurance that the government of Kenya will support you, will stand by you. You cannot intimidate the police.
It's not only about the energy sector, but also other areas that will be involved, notably the health sector through nuclear medicine. Essentially, for the energy aspect, it will be about exploring the possibility of implementing a nuclear power plant in Burkina Faso.
So fellas, that's what it is. Burkina Faso has officially signed a final administrative document of an historical intergovernmental nuclear deal with Russia, taking a significant forward in its quest to nuclear energy. Congratulations. Piga makofi. Yeah, piga makofi. It's interesting. I think it's amazing to see somebody get it right, because Africans always cry. They just cry, we don't have electricity, there's no water. I don't know if you've experienced this. Do you know in many African countries there is no electricity? Yes, there's lights that comes, there's electricity, you can watch TV for a moment, but it's never 24 hours a day. Some people get electricity for 10 hours, then it goes off. Why? Because in most cases there are way too many people for the electricity that is available. And how is that possible? Because when many years ago, the colonialists came into many African countries and built the infrastructure for electricity, they didn't plan for the black people to give birth to 6, 7, 9, 11 children within a decade or two. Now, after 5 decades, you can imagine, okay, the number of people that now require electricity. In some countries, also in Africa, usually people who built the infrastructure of electricity, they put money aside, thinking about the future, saying we're going to put this money aside, save this money, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Or else we know that in the future we may have more children, so more humans will require more electricity. So we cannot use the same means we're using right now for the future. Let's put money into a bank account somewhere. Guess what happens next? Well, usually when a black leader comes into power, his friend, if not his nephew, just run after that account that was keeping money for the future. They will use it for their own purpose, dilapidate it, then afterward they will complain saying we don't have the means to furnish electricity to everybody, forgetting that the people that were there before them, they made sure there was enough money in an account that will be used for the future. But yeah, most black people basically, once they're in power, they care about their own stomachs. They actually say the country is okay provided I am drinking champagne. If I am drinking champagne, it doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter whether your child cannot go to school because you don't have money for school fees. But as long as me and my children, my nephews and nieces are flying first class, it's fine. Let's continue. So this is a massive project, fellas. A massive project. And Russia is coming in to build a nuclear plant which is going to help Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso finalized a significant intergovernmental nuclear agreement with Russia. The deal involved collaboration with Russia's Rosatom to develop a nuclear infrastructure for peaceful purpose. They had to head there for peaceful purpose. We are constructing nuclear, not for the atomic bomb, but for peaceful purpose. Now, who's going to manage the agreement? Okay, I know it's not going to be very easy, but Russia is going to manage the agreement alongside Burkina Faso, but Russia first. And how is this going to be done? It is estimated that Russia is going to get about 80 to 85%, whilst Burkina Faso will have 20 or 15%. Is this a good deal or not? Well, then on the other side, you need to take into consideration Russia is bringing all the equipment. They are bringing the money. This investment needs at least $7 billion to operate, and Russia is bringing at least 80% of that money. So Russia is bringing the mechanism, they're bringing the engineers, they're bringing the tools, they're even bringing the fuel. How do you run a nuclear plant? You mainly need uranium as a fuel, and Burkina Faso, as far as 2025, does not extract uranium. Well, it is said that after some survey, they found there is a possibility for the uranium to be in that land, but they do not have uranium. Therefore, it will mean that Russia will have to bring equipment, bring the engineers, the brains, and also the money, the funding. And on top of that, bring the fuel to burn. So they're going to be controlling the company for the next 20 to 30 years. And then Burkina Faso is taking over. Is this a good deal or not? Now, let me just remind you here, Burkina Faso, many people sleep in the dark. There's no electricity in many places. Yes, there is electricity, but not to the level of a first world country. They receive technology transfer and upskilling, reducing future reliance on Russia. That is beautiful. They're not just bringing you stuff, they're also teaching you how to do and manage it yourself. Unlike many African countries, they'll bring somebody from Norway to build something, and once he's gone, you're going to need him again to come and service the thing because he never thought you, or you never included in the contract the section saying you have to train our people. Well, Burkina Faso is not about our life. Number 2, Burkina Faso will have electricity guaranteed revenue after servicing loans from Russia Rosatom. Well, you have loans, you're going to have loans because these are the people that are building things. You're going to need money, so they're going to lend you some of the money you need to reimburse. I know it sounds harsh, but that's what it is. Number 3, Burkina Faso will secure construction contracts like engineering, procurement, and many more. And that's a good opportunity for the Burkinabe men and women. Number 4, Burkina Faso will gain strategic geopolitical influence in West Africa, and future maintenance, construction, follow-on work. The influence of an African country with nuclear power will be very interesting. So Russia will gain with influence to try to curb all the sanctions they have. They have to diversify the market. They cannot just be working with Europeans. So it's crucial for them to also work with Africans. And by doing so, they are escaping the sanctions that are submitted to the Russians right now. Russia secure construction contract, bringing engineering, procurement, and construction. Number 2, they earn through interest on loans extended to Burkina Faso. Number 3, they gain strategic geopolitical influence in West Africa for future maintenance, and obviously it's good reputation for Russia. In other words, Russia will bring the reactor, the design and the construction. They will bring fuel supply. They enrich uranium and take back the possible waste. They will provide scholarship, training, staff development, manual, and also sponsorship for Burkina Faso people to go study in Russia. They will do the operational support. So initial staffing, maintenance, help, and long-term will be due by Russia. Do you think this is fair? You don't have a nuclear plant, okay? You don't have it. You don't have nuclear power, nuclear electricity. You do not have it. So you sleep in the dark in most cases. Not all of it. Many parishes don't have electricity. I can provide it to you. And it's going to be you after 25, 30 years, depend. Do you want that or not? If you don't want that, how fast can you catch up and build your own things and bring your own uranium and stuff? Very difficult. And now we're moving to something very interesting. The United States of America. Here's a map. Okay. United States of America has approved a preventive drug against HIV. Is this good news or what? Let's pick up my coffee. You gotta pick up my coffee for our brothers and sisters that live. Yeah, you've got to do it. So this is basically a preventive shot that people take. You will take it twice a year, and you become 99% impossible to contract HIV.
This is a twice-a-year injection. It's given subcutaneously, and it is an antiviral that prevents HIV acquisition.
That is big because, look, the majority of people living with HIV are in Africa. I don't know why. Maybe we're going to make a video about it to clarify, because we have some elements showing that it wasn't a very natural thing at all. It was purposed for something and it went south anyway, and maybe did not achieve exactly what it was meant to be achieving. So the USA, through Gilead, have you heard of Gilead? One of the biggest companies of pharmaceutical. They produce a lot of medication about cancer, about hepatitis, a lot of stuff. They have put together this brand new shot. The United States has approved a new injectable preventive treatment for HIV. It is the lenacapavir, marketed under Yeztugo, a twice-yearly injection. It was approved today on the 18th of June, so it's fresh. It has proven effectiveness. Phase 3 of trials show exceptional efficacy, up to 99.9% protection with 100% success rate. That's a lot. That's a lot, brother. That's a lot. Usually before they accept the medication, you need to test many people, see whether it's actually working or it was just bad luck. 99.9%, that's very high.
Well, the first trial, there was both of these trials were supported by Gilead, was the Purpose 1 trial, which was done for young reproductive age adolescent girls and women in sub-Saharan Africa. And the reason for that is that in Africa, you see it's part of the world where there is female predominance. There are more infections in women than there are in men. And we have had a terrible time controlling new infections, reducing the number of new infections in this population. So that was the first group. We really aimed it at women and girls in high-burden countries of reproductive age.
Do you think they don't have the total cure to this disease? I'm just asking. I mean, if you make money out of people being unwell, that's your business model, right? Are you happy when nobody's unwell? Well, if you're not happy, then business is not doing good. Then you're not a businessman. If you are a businessman involved in this, then you need to be, you know what I'm saying? Now, my question is, for many decades, after asking the question, do you think there is no cure to this? After many decades of people waiting, why would they release something now that's actually a vaccine? It's not necessarily a vaccine, but it's very close to that. Okay, it's also not very close to cure, because cure is something else. So it's something that allows you to be protected. Why would they do this? Because, I mean, they make about $4 billion in selling anti-retro, you know what I mean? It's a lot of money. Do you think this is genuine? Or do you perhaps see this as one of those things? You take injection, whatever. You take injection to protect yourself, and then down the line they say, okay, we're recalling the medication because there's something wrong with this. Yeah, and we're taking you back to ARVs. We were just trying to test this to see if we're making money through it, but we've realized that we're not making enough money. Therefore, we're going to get back to the previous setting. How would you feel about that? There are types of people that cannot contract HIV. Do you know that? Yes, people with the CCR5 genetic change. So it's a genetic mutation. Those people cannot get HIV. They can do that with 20, 35, not possible. You find those genetics usually in Iceland or Scandinavia. That's where you find most of those people. There's also people they call elite controllers. Elite controllers, just as it sounds, it's those people, they may be infected with HIV, but it's never truly developed. The immune system has a capacity to suppress virus load. So the virus doesn't grow. These are natural human beings. Well, you find those people apparently in some area of Cameroon and Congo. If you look at the map, you see Cameroon and Congo not very, very far from each other. The elite controllers. So amongst HIV people in the world, only 1% of them are elite controllers. That's perhaps one of the reasons why sometimes you ask yourself, but I know that guy's got... Okay, we're in Russia. Ukraine has declared its long-range attack of the war with Russia on Sunday after using smuggled drones to launch a series of major strikes on at least 40 Russian warplanes at 4 military bases. This is insane. This is insane. I mean, how many people would dare go to war with Russia, let alone in this very situation, to attack some of the most expensive warplanes with $200 drone? You must have a level of bravery that's unseen before, or a level of stupidity that is unseen before. 41 aircrafts, including the T-22M long-range supersonic bombers, the T-95 Flying Fortress, and the A-50 early warning fighter jet were hit and damaged on Sunday on 4 airfields, including the Arctic and Siberia. So fellas, this is how it happened. The Ukrainians have hit Russia, multiple bases. They're talking about 4 different air bases. These are very much inside the Russian territory, not next to the border. And this is crazy because this attack was successful. And some observers say the attack shattered Russia's image of a global nuclear power. I mean, if they're going to reach out to some of your most expensive airplanes, up to $200 million in damage from a $200 drone, people question your capabilities. Some of the air bases that were hit are Belaya Air Base. This is in Irkutsk region, located about 4,300 kilometers away. I mean, look at the distance. 4,300 kilometers away, using a drone. The next base was Alaya Air Base, in approximately 2,000 kilometers away from Ukraine, deep inside Russia. The third base was Diaghilevo Air Base, at 520 kilometers away from Ukraine. And this was a very strategic base where they trained Russian Air Force bombers. So in order for you to disable them from using bombers, you attack where they train bombers. Crazy stuff. The last base was the Ivanovo base. This happened in Ivanovo region, approximately 800 kilometers from Ukraine. This is a base for Russian military transport aircraft. Zelensky said Ukraine used 117 drones in a massive operation against Russian military base, adding that the operation was absolutely brilliant and had inflicted significant losses. He said planning for the operation began a year and a half ago. Wow. Preparing a year and a half for an operation like this, that really looks like a big success for the Ukrainians. It's massive. So how did the drone go undetected by the Russian Defense Force? It's crazy, right? So apparently they smuggled the drones into trucks. They create a specific compartment in wood so that they don't get detected. So those trucks were inside Russia, positioned in a different area, different location next to bases. And they triggered the attacks from a distance after making sure that all Ukrainian agents had left Russia. Drones were smuggled into Russia, hidden in wooden containers mounted on trucks. And at scheduled time, the container roof were opened remotely and the drones were launched to strike the target. The Ukrainian agents involved were reportedly evacuated before the attack began. They're estimating about $7 billion in damage from the Russians, and the Ukrainians believe that 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers were hit, potentially limiting Russia's long-range missile and drone capabilities. So what's notable here is that some of the attack, especially the one to Olenia base, was launched from a petrol station or a gas station. So the truck was parked at a gas station or petrol station from which the drone flew to the base and destroyed. Now, you need to understand one thing, okay? These drones beat some of the best air defense system. We're talking about the Russian S-400, one of the most expensive and the most efficient in the world. Now, you need to understand how they beat it. They beat it because those systems were not initially created for drones. They were created for long-range missiles and stuff like that. Now, Russia will definitely need to make an adaptation to make sure to create something different if they want to defend against things that are as cheap as drones.
Europe, together with America, has better weapons than Russia. We also have stronger tactical solutions. Our Operation Spiderweb yesterday proved that. Russia must feel what its losses mean. That is what will push it toward diplomacy. And when Russia takes losses in this war, it's obvious to everyone that Ukraine is the one holding the line, not just for itself, but for all of Europe. We must do everything to make sure diplomacy is not empty. Our delegation is now in Istanbul, and we are ready to take the necessary steps for peace. Naturally, the starting point should be a ceasefire and humanitarian actions, the release of prisoners and the return of abducted children.
Now, why is this important for Ukraine? This is important for Ukraine. Let me remind you here that right now Ukrainians and Russians are in Turkey trying to have a negotiation around a peace deal, at least a ceasefire. Now, by Ukraine bombing Russia, they are putting themselves in a very good negotiating position. They are also showing to the Russians that they are not toothless. They have capability to reach inside Russia. They are showing Donald Trump that it is Donald Trump that say that they have lost the war. They had not lost the war yet. Because remember, Trump said you don't have cards. We have the cards.
Right now, not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the
the
cards right now. With us, you start having
Not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm
You're playing cards.
You don't have a card. This is a way for Ukraine to prove to Trump we actually do have some cards we can play. So out of all of this, Americans say that they were not informed about the Ukrainian attack. Same for the Germans. They said they were not involved. They had no idea that Ukraine was going to conduct this attack. Are they telling the truth or not? Or are they just trying to avoid any repercussion, direct repercussion to them from this attack? So now the big question here is this one. Is the Russian Air Force being compromised? Targeting air-based housing strategic bombers such as Tu-95 and Tu-22M and transport aircraft compromises Russia's ability to conduct long-range strikes and ensure logistical support. Damaging or destroying aircraft, infrastructure, or runways limits Russia's air superiority and its bombing campaign against Ukrainian targets. How do you think Russia is going to respond? Well, Vladimir Putin has spoken after the bombardment, and his response had absolutely nothing to do with the major attack they've just received. Crazy stuff. I mean, as much as I'm sure everybody was sitting in front of his TV waiting to hear what Putin is going to say. I mean, is it the end now? Is it World War III? Are we going to shoot Orishnik or 20 of them? Well, he came on TV and he just spoke about happy birthday wishes to some entity, some crazy stuff. So, is he planning something? Do you think Putin is going to stay quiet about this? Let me know how you feel about this. And now we're going to South Africa. Fellas, the second and smaller group of white Afrikaners have left South Africa for the United States of America. Remember, South Africa was accused of genocide against white people and trying to take land without compensation. So, initiating the need for many Afrikaners, white South Africans, wanting to relocate after Donald Trump gave them an opportunity to move to the United States of America with no issues. A second and much smaller group of white Afrikaners arrived quietly in the United States of America on Friday, without any noise or fanfare. You remember the last time they went, they were met by officials, there was TVs and cameras and stuff. This time around was completely different. And of course, this time around, they did not go in a private jet. They actually used a commercial flight from Johannesburg. Like the first batch who relocated to the US early May, they claimed to be persecuted in their home countries. This group is part of some 8,000 Afrikaners who will reportedly be resettled in the US over the next few months. And controversially, fellas, they have been granted fast-track refugee status by Donald Trump. So they are accepted already and they're going to fast-track them into becoming citizens as well. Now, do they have the rights to go to the US? Yes, absolutely. You can go wherever you want to go. But is there a genocide happening in South Africa? Are there only whites? Absolutely not. Is South Africa a dangerous country? Yes, it is. Is it only for white people? Absolutely not. Let me know how you feel about this. The Ukrainians have destroyed 42 warplanes in Russia, showing that they do have some card. They may not have a Orishnik, but they have the ability to destroy. How do you think Vladimir Putin is going to react to this? Is this showing flaws within the Russian army? Is Russia maybe not as powerful as we thought? Or is Vladimir Putin actually holding his Joker card under the sleeves? God bless.